North Korean troops fighting for Russia are already beginning to desert, but are they just learning from the best? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this is a pretty funny report. Around 18 North Korean soldiers are believed to have deserted the front lines already. In fact, it doesn't even appear that they're at the front line. But the Kremlin is reportedly searching for these North Korean deserters. Now, bear in mind, guys, the North Korean contingent that is sent to fight on Russia's behalf in Ukraine is reportedly made up of Kim Jong-un's elite troops, some of their storm brigades. These are highly trained, highly motivated troops. So the fact that they have any defections is kind of astounding, right? And for context, guys, in 20 plus years of war in Iraq and Afghanistan, there are probably less than 10 cases of desertion or defection. So the fact that this is already occurring, especially in a system like North Korea, where if you are sent overseas, part of the leverage the state maintains over you is actually threats to your family. So, for example, if you desert, it's likely that the immediate family members of that soldier are going to be put in brutal prison camps. In fact, some of the reports that up to multiple generations. So your children will be sent to these prison camps and even their children if necessary. The fact that North Korean, despite facing these tremendous punishments, they're still doing it is kind of astounding. Now, again, this is North Korea, so given the huge detention rates, I think it's actually very possible that some of these troops likely don't have family members to put in jail. That might be an incentive, or they might have family members already in, again, jail isn't quite the right term, North Korean work camps. But what's interesting is that, again, I think these North Korean soldiers are, in all likelihood, defecting simply to get to the West. I think that's their goal, right? Because given the level of information control in North Korea, it's likely that they are not actually subject to the same level of information we have here in the West or even in Russia, right? This is a country with limited internet, and, even here in the West, in the United States, being in the military somewhat limits your ability to get access to the outside world, right? Especially when you're deployed or in exercises. So it seems likely that North Koreans are even more restricted. So the fact that they either have a sense that something's up or simply can't pass up the opportunity to get out of the North Korean system is pretty telling. But they may just be following suit, because it seems as though more and more Russians are deserting. And while we've reported on Russian desertions for a long time, and we've reported on Russians, again, who oftentimes release videos outlining why they feel they're being sent on one-way missions, what's interesting is that there's been a huge policy shift in the EU, and that is that France is granting asylum to Russian deserters. Now, this is really interesting to me for a couple of reasons. First, it says that for Russia, you can actually get out of Russia and into a freer, more prosperous country like France if you can join the Russian military and desert and make it to France, right? Now, that's a tough order, but it's not as hard as you might think, right? As we've pointed out, right, 6 Russian soldiers who fled the fighting in Ukraine have actually gotten asylum. And, when you think about it, it sort of makes sense. Asylum is one of those things that exists for people fleeing persecution, and the current international standards include people fleeing because of their political beliefs. So if you believe that this war is wrong and you flee the Russian military, believing you're being ordered to, for example, commit a war crime, then in that case, you do have a good case for asylum, especially given the fact that it seems highly likely that the military or the Russian government will punish those who they believe have deserted, right? And so this is interesting because, again, they profile Alexander, who, again, seems to have fled in Crimea. This looks like somebody who fled in around the early stages of the conflict. Now, before we talk about why it makes just so much sense that the Russian military is going to start to have a real desertion problem, I want to mention that the Ukrainian military also could use your help, right? And that is because they are fighting right now outside of Pokrovsk. This is the town that Putin has allegedly ordered the Russian military to take by the end of September. So they're 3 weeks behind schedule, and the Russians are pulling out all the stops. On the other side, though, holding them back is the 25th Airborne Brigade and the 14th Brigade of the Ukrainian National Guard. And these guys have asked us by way of Ukraine Aid Ops for help, right? They've put in a request with UAO. This is a U.S.-registered 501c3 charity that raises funds, raises actually gear for these Ukrainian units that need the help. And so we're raising drones for them, including reconnaissance drones and FPV drones, drone jammers and other anti-drone devices, range extenders, power stations, and more, right? Obviously, if you donate, like always, there's tiered reward systems, including patches, which, of course, you guys know that given the price of an FPV drone, it's if you buy them a drone, you get a patch. That's a pretty cool deal, right? That's a real solid piece of lore to have in your personal history, so to speak, right? But best of all, if we can raise over $100,000 for these guys, I will go and deliver the drones to the units myself. So if you're interested, the link is in the description. Now let's talk about how things are going for the Russian military. The answer is not great, lads. According to Ukrainian estimates, which actually, based on some leaked recent Pentagon documents, we found that the Ukrainian estimate is actually not far off, right? And remember, the U.S. estimates are going to be informed by the CIA and national intelligence apparatus, so their estimates are going to be probably the best that we have. And so, but obviously the Ukrainians, they're reporting actually not far off. And they've reported that Russia had just suffered the second deadliest day since the start of the invasion. According to them, October 17th, the Russians reportedly incurred 1,500 casualties, guys. And that is absolutely insane. And about 50% higher than the typical attrition rate of about 1,000 casualties a day. And that makes sense, right? The Russian military, of course, is really constrained by its manpower, right? We've seen them raise sign-on bonuses to try to persuade more troops in. There's been reports that the troops are much older, averaging around 50 years old. And of course, North Korea is likely receiving a lot of technical assistance in exchange for providing these 10,000 North Korean troops. So Russia's really looking a little tight, and I think in part this high casualties are a function of the Russian efforts to take Pokrovsk and the fact that as the rainy season enters Ukraine, you're going to see that tanks and other combat vehicles can no longer effectively navigate the environment. As a result, right, they're going to have to basically take care of any objectives they want to over the next couple months and do so shortly, right? This lull in the fighting is probably going to provide both Russia and Ukraine a chance to sort of refit and re-equip. But again, I think the takeaway here is if you're a Russian trooper, things aren't getting better, they're getting much, much worse. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out. Thanks to Martin Baum, Chris Rossi, Stuart Abel, Daniel Brown, Sergei Zinchenko, Chris Holmes, Chris Gorsuch, Daniel M., and Ida Skycall, as well as all of our lieutenant tier members. I couldn't do this without you guys. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.